Well, everyone, it's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Tim Connery here for his new film, Death to Metal. So, Tim, thank you for taking time to chat with me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Shane.
Awesome. I always like to give my guests a chance to talk a little bit about the film. So, I guess big things, obviously, when and where can people check it out?
Yeah, it's getting released on digital platforms December 7th. So that's a Tuesday coming up here in like a week and a half. Yeah, I would think I don't know exactly like which platforms, but I would expect the usual suspects like Prime,
Mhm.
PSN, Xbox Live, all that good stuff. Anywhere you can typically find a VOD release.
There you go. So I always like to start by asking my guests, obviously, big question is, how did this project come about? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so the first iteration of the script goes back to I think like 2011, 2012, and I was just wrapping up my first feature, which is a completely different animal. That film is called Black Web. You can actually find that if you have Amazon Prime. It's free with ads up there, and that's like a low key drama with like a sci-fi twist. And I made that like fresh out of film school, like literally graduated the summer of 2010, and then moved. I went to film school in Chicago, and I moved back to my hometown area in Dubuque, Iowa, which is if you look on a map, it's right where Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin converge on the Mississippi on the map there. So I moved back with, I knew that I had connections in the city, that it would be easier to fundraise. It'd be easier to acquire locations and all that good stuff. Because one of the things that they kind of drilled into your skull at film school was, no one's going to take you seriously until you shoot your first feature. So I was like, well, I gotta do that, right? So did that first feature. It went over pretty well. We had our world premiere at the Seattle International Film Festival, and our international premiere up in Montreal at Fantasia. So it went really good. But and we eventually got picked up for VOD. But I knew after like doing the festival circuit with that film. That I just wanted to do something like I wanted to do like a 180 with my follow up, and just do something that was less serious and more fun. Something I was so sick of watching that. Can we swear on
Yeah,
this? I
we're
was so
adults
sick of
here.
watching that fucking movie. It, after you watch it, like 200 times, I was pretty bored of the material, and I was like, I want to make something that's like watch proof, that like 10, 20 years from now I'll still love cracking open a beer and um watching it with some buddies, and just kind of get back to the heart of like why I started making movies in the first place, which was to obviously to tell stories that I like to tell, but also that have some fun.
Yeah.
Um so I've been in the metal community ever since high school. I've been in 3 different bands. One band, it was a black metal band that had a little more success, and we did like moderate touring, nothing crazy. When I was in college, we would do like a week of shows here, a week of shows there, usually in the Midwest. And I think the original like pitch or idea for this happened on one of those tours, where I don't know why we started talking about, but it would be fun or funny to do a movie about a priest, where he's the bad guy, and he's kind of taken on the whole world of metal, and yeah, it just kind of it started as a joke, and eventually, when I knew I wanted to my follow up to be kind of like a horror comedy, and just something more frivolous and fun, and kind of like review proof, because it's just so, you know, for lack of better words, it's just like stupid fun, right?
Yeah.
Um, I started writing it, and 20 or so drafts later, after I started collaborating with my co-writer Kevin Copas to inject a little more comedy in the script, I want to say the near shooting script was done sometime in 2012, and yeah, then the hardest part comes, right, where you got to fundraise and you got to try to figure out a way to turn the pages into an actual movie. So life kind of happened, and I started working because I was like, well, I gotta still make I still gotta eat. So I formed like a corporate commercial business here in the area, and kind of hunkered down and focused on that component of my career, and did commercials and corporate stuff. And then around 2016, I was getting the itch, and I was like, I gotta make this movie happen. And we did I'm still very proud of it, because we produced videos and did some fun content for a Indiegogo campaign. If you look the campaign up, the film was called something different at the time. It was called Good Friday, but that campaign's still up on their website, and you can see all those update videos we did and stuff. And eventually, I think Wild Eyes, the distributor, they're going to be doing a Blu-ray release that'll have some of that stuff as like
Awesome.
bonus content. Sometime in the spring, they were saying there's like plastic shortages still or something or other, so it's delayed a little bit. But we raised, like, I want to say around 25,000 for production, and had another 25,000 just from various investors, 50 grand for the film, which might sound like a lot of money to some people, but if you make movies, it's not a lot of money. I have commercial budgets that are like twice that size, so through a lot of favors, with my different connections here in the Midwest, in Chicago, in Iowa, we scheduled to shoot the film in summer of 2017, and it was 6 days on, 1 day off for 4 weeks, so 24 shooting days total, with a few pickups here and there. And yeah, it went great. It was, like I said, compared to that first feature, such a different animal.
Mhm.
It's like an action film compared to the first feature, and lots of blood and lots of cleaning up, and it was kind of a big cast of characters, so it wasn't just like true blue actors. Like the main core cast, they're all actual actors, but everybody else is either actual musicians or locals, and obviously the disparity in the talent is kind of evident on screen, but I'm okay with that. It's that kind of film.
Mhm.
So yeah, that and it didn't take long before we had a good cut of it. And I want to say we had our world premiere at Spooky Empire in Tampa Bay in 2019. Then we had our international premiere at the Soho Horror Festival in London in November. And then the pandemic hit, and the festival component pretty much turned virtual. So there was a lot of films in Europe that ended up screening the film virtually throughout 2020 and part of 2021. I think it's going to do, I don't know when there's going to be an international release of this thing, but I think it's going to do really well over there. I mean, metal's just more ubiquitous over in Europe. Obviously, a lot of metalheads in the USA too, but it just seems like the response over there was so positive, and so many people played it, and I'm excited to see what it does over there when the time comes. But so yeah, that's kind of the not brief story.
Hey, it's a very interesting story too, and you drawing upon your own interest and your involvement with metal music. And sometimes an idea just starts as like a one sentence thing. It's like, just imagine, what if this happened? And look, all of these years later, it's a film, and it's going to be coming out. And I know I got a chance to screen it, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I definitely enjoy like hard rock, heavy metal music. So like I definitely had that aspect of it that I had an appreciation for. But it's a lot of fun. And I'm glad that this is going to be going out there and people are going to be able to check it out. Now, in terms of some inspirations, are there any particular films that you kind of drew upon when conceiving the idea for the film?
I mean, I grew up and I was a huge Friday the 13th fan.
Mhm.
And I always kind of me and my buddies, my friends growing up, we would do like the marathons of the entire series. This is before like Jason X came out, so there was 9 films, and if we started at like 5 p.m., like on a Friday night after school, we would be wrapping Jason Goes to Hell at like 10 in the morning, you know?
There you
And this
go.
is like as like, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, so we weren't like, we were drinking like Mountain Dew and that stuff. We weren't like partying or anything like that. So we were glued to the television. We did this a bunch. And I always looked forward to the back half of the films when they got a little campier.
Mhm.
Part 6 is probably my favorite. Jason Lives. So once you got over the hump of Roy's Jason in a New Beginning, I was all about the telekinesis in part 7. Jason takes Manhattan when it's at actually Jason takes a boat pretty much. But I love that franchise so much. That's probably the biggest inspiration. A lot of people when they saw this film, they're like trauma, right? I haven't really seen many trauma films, but I've had a lot of people tell me that this reminds them of, like the Toxic Avenger. I feel like I've seen like clips from it, but
Mhm.
um, so maybe some sort of like a subconscious inspiration there. But yeah, just the campy horror slasher films in the 80s that were uh, maybe not intentionally funny, but were probably created just to kind of entertain and be ridiculous.
Mhm.
Um, that's the main inspiration for this. That and a hefty amount of inspiration from the actual metal world. Going on those smaller tours in college with my black metal band Nether Void, you just meet so many different characters,
Mhm.
and you know right from what right, and
Yeah.
so so many of those people were weird, but also just like great people, in these small venues, and the whole idea that a show can where only like 20 people show up can be like the highlight of someone's year, and I get that. I thought that was so intriguing, and the passion that some of these musicians and people have, and promoters, was definitely kind of inspiring, and inspired the whole the Holy Saturday Metal Massacre like angle
Mhm.
in the film with Ryan Rammer and the promoter dilemma. So yeah, so
Yeah, and you could definitely feel those like 80s into 90s slasher movie kind of feel. And you even have your own uh hooded, deformed killer with like a giant sharpened wooden crucifix. So it's like that kind of like slasher kind of villain kind of look is a fun thing, and having that into the film as well. And now I know I definitely had fun watching it, and I could definitely feel there was a lot of fun happening probably while making the film. But what was the thing that you enjoyed most about making the film?
what did I enjoy most about making it? Production's always a grueling task, especially when you're doing a production on a really really modest budget. We just wrapped a short film back in September where we shot for 6 days, and that one, which was just a 6 day shoot, had a budget bigger than this film. So that just goes to show you how like thrifty we had to be. Um, I honestly, working with actors is always the best part for me. Like some of the scenes that were just like the simplest, like the scene in the record store where Zayn and Mariah are going back and forth. We did that scene in a single take, and that was probably one of my like the moments as just like a director. Like I just like love like blocking and figuring out a dialogue driven scene front to back. Obviously the all the stuff at the venue was fantastic and fun. The day where we killed, a ton of people. I wish we had, had we had a bigger budget, I would have done like 3 total days of killing people, because it was like, that was like one of those things where it was like, to the special effects guy, it's like, okay, today's your day. We have 12 hours. However many people you can kill in 12 hours, like that's like what you get. So like hustle and, make sure your team is like on top of it, because we had, very specific kills in mind, like the cymbal and like the drum thing. But there was other stuff that was just completely, like improv. The mess of bodies when the camera's jibbing up and, people are finally realizing that people are getting killed, right? The band stops. There's some really fun kills in that mess of people that you'd have to like pause it and like look like, okay, so that person got choked out with their dreadlocks. You know what I mean? Like there's just like a bunch of stuff in that room that had we had more time that day to like actually give it, its moment on screen, like there would have been like 10 more people sliced and diced. So the duality of those two things, like having fun with the kills, and then some of those dialogue driven scenes, were definitely the highlight for me.
Awesome. And I always like to ask too, because you're here, you want people to check out your film. If you could pick the one thing, what's the one reason why people should go check out Death to Metal?
Yeah, I mean, if you like campy horror films, cracking open a beer and kind of just turning off your brain and having fun, like that's why you would turn this on. You don't have to be a metal geek and love metal to love this film. There's relatable things that are happening to the main character. I mean, one of the main characters doesn't get metal at all, right? Mariah, she's like our true audience character, asking the questions and being like, what the hell is this stuff that you're playing for me? So you don't have to love metal to, if you do love metal, you'll get it that much more. And there's some songs and stuff from some legit metal acts, like the music from Grandma Incinerator in the film is actually done by all the guys in Allegiant, which is a big progressive death metal band that's on Metal Blade. So the music's legit if you like metal. We for the international premiere, we devised a drinking game for the film, so that kind of tells you like what kind of movie you're getting into, right? So yeah, just it's a turn off your brain Friday, Saturday night kind of flick with your buddies. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's definitely a lot of fun. So I'm sure a lot of people out there, when they check it out, will have a lot of fun with it. Now, shifting gears a little bit to more about you, Tim. So I always like to ask this question, and I don't know how much everybody else loves being asked this question, but what's your favorite film?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I've been asked this question a bunch, obviously, as a filmmaker. People ask the question all the time, and I'm always like kind of like a little flustered with the question, because it's like, well, by what metrics are we judging that my favorite film? I usually say Back to the Future is the film that I've seen the most, right? Like that's my like comfort film, right? Like the turn it on and love every minute, regardless of how many times you've seen it. It's just the whole trilogy is perfect. So that's probably where I go. If you're getting a little more sophisticated, with the conversation, I really love, anything by P.T. Anderson, and There Will Be Blood is like, just, I love how like deep and rich the dialogue is in that film. And there's just like a tone to it that is just like unparalleled. It's just like so nihilistic and dirty, and it's like the perfect film to sum up like America. So in capitalism and greed and all that good stuff. So Probably that those are my answers off the cuff today, at least. You know,
Yeah,
you
there
ask
you
me
go.
tomorrow, it might be something different.
And that's very fair. And like Paul Thomas Anderson is so great, and I'm a huge fan of There Will Be Blood. That's definitely my favorite of his. And yeah, there's just an unnerving feel to it. That Johnny Greenwood
Oh
score
yeah.
is just
Mhm.
so creepy and haunting in so many different ways. And
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to checking out Licorice Pizza when
Yeah,
that
it
comes
looks
around.
great. And the reviews are coming out too, and it just seems like a passion project of his that
Mhm,
he just needed to tell, and those are sometimes the best stories, right?
exactly. Now, obviously, your film is definitely that horror comedy kind of vibe. I know you talked about like Friday the 13th. What are some of your other favorite horror films?
Uh, yeah, the this might be an easy answer, but the film that made me pick up a camera, and probably a lot of people my age, which is mid 30s, pick up a camera was the Blair Witch Project.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously, the I would never make a found footage film. Like I have no zero desire to make a found footage film. But yeah, that just like what that I still think that film holds up, and it's like quintessential uh, you know when you're talking about actual horror films. Uh, less is more.
Yep.
Like the Jaws thing, like the fact that we showed less of the shark makes it scarier because your imagination will always be scarier than something you can show on screen, right? And which is why
Exactly.
like the newer Blair Witch, that I forget what the director, um, I forget what his name is, but that's why that one kind of failed, right? Is they just like showed too much and they kind of explained too much. Man, I for days couldn't get to sleep after the ending of Blair Witch, and so I saw it in '99. I was like 12 when I saw it, and man, like I think his name is Justin in the film is standing in the basement corner like this, and you just like you're not sure why. You remember the story about Rustin Parr and all and the kids and him making them stand in the corner, and it just unnerved the hell out of me. And I love that film for some, and then me and my friends, we were like, well, I was like, my parents had this old VHS camcorder, because it was the summer when it came out. I want to say like we should take it out into the woods and try to do something similar, right? It just
Yeah.
empowered me that like, holy shit, like I could make movies, right? This isn't out of reach for me. So I'm gonna go with that as a short answer. And I love a lot of the uh the 90s, like your Scream and all that stuff that was
Mhm.
coming out in the 90s, just because of their blend of horror and comedy. um a lot of my favorite horror films have kind of a comedic twist to them. And then probably again, like the more sophisticated answer, and probably the horror film I've seen like the most would be like The Shining. I watch that like every year, like right around the first blizzard in Iowa. I'm like, you got to turn on The Shining, like just what a great. I just saw like an essay video on Reddit the other day about the score of The Shining and the Mickey Mouse thing and that was done, and it just goes to show like every new video essay that comes out about that film, like I learned something new about how it was made or why certain things were done a certain way. It's just such a dynamic horror film, and I love the fact that it was like completely like reviewers like at the time thought it was a piece of shit, which is like just like shocking because now it's like considered one of the best horror films of like all time, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so Blair Witch for it, encouraging me to pick up a camera, and then The Shining for just being such a multi-layered, weird uh, movie that we can just discuss the hell out of it and it never gets old.
Yeah, I know. I think I was 8 because I just turned 30. So when the Witch Project came out, I remember when it came out, and I remember everybody talking about it because I had two older stepbrothers who went out and saw it.
Yeah,
And it was just one of those kinds of things that just took everybody by storm. and it was such a big thing. And and Scream's still at it.
Yeah,
And
Scream's still at it. Yeah.
it won't come out in January.
Those movies would be, I feel like, bigger classics had, especially Blair Witch, had it not got muddled by producers just milking the found footage genre. Like, if a lot of found footage movies didn't exist and it was just like Blair Witch on an island, basically, like, it would be considered one of the greatest films of all time, I'm convinced. Just because of, and that there's another good example of like a low budget, and the film's budget is probably the reason why they did some of the creative choices, right? And they didn't have the witch busting out of the woods or something, and then embrace that less is more mentality, and the film just benefits from it. What a a perfect accidental cocktail for suspense and horror.
It's like you can't do much when you only have $5, so then you're just walking around in the woods. But my last question that I always like to ask, because obviously being involved in films, it's like you have some passion for that. And now, Tim, what do you love most about movies?
For me, movies, I watch more films in the theater than I do at home, because I love the experience of going to the movies. Obviously VOD has changed a lot of that, and that's a good thing, because movies like Death to Metal can be seen by everyone without having to embrace a theatrical release, or someone requiring someone to pick up a DVD or something like that. It's just the whole experience. I love the escapism aspect of going to the movies, turning off your brain, getting transported to a different place, a different time. Being able to share it with your friends or your loved ones or whatever, or just strangers. The idea that people who have never met can sit down in a theater and laugh at the same thing or be scared at the same thing, is something very communal that I love about the movie going experience. And that's that's one of the reasons I wanted to make Death to Metal. Is like, I want this to be kind of a testament to just like having like those good times that I had growing up with those Friday the 13th marathons, and those watch parties and stuff. It's I want people to not take it too seriously. And again, if you like beer, like, it's a good movie to have a couple beers with. Just there's so much to love about movies, and there's so much to love about making movies that I would anticipate. I'm working on my third feature right now, which is an anthology horror film. It's actually like true blue horror, and that's that short film I was referring to earlier. So we got like a fourth of the film done, and there's making movies on the budgets that I'm forced to utilize, at least currently. It is such a process, and it's so difficult, but it's so fucking rewarding when you get to this point, right? Where I'm starting to see reviews pop up, and again, people I've never met or will never meet are watching this weird thing we made back in the summer of 2017, and enjoying it, and seeing what we saw in the story, and that's great, to share something with the world. And it's like why I love going to movies is enjoying something someone else drew up, and then why I like making movies is to see other people enjoying something I enjoyed telling the story. So
awesome. I know it's definitely been great being able to get back into the theaters and seeing some movies. Saw Ghostbusters Afterlife with a couple of my friends last weekend, and that's just a lot of fun to just be able to sit in the theater and enjoy that.
Yeah, that's the last thing I saw too, was Ghostbusters, and it's flawed, but I had a good fucking time. It's nostalgia bait like through and through, but I'm like, fuck it, who cares? Like,
It's like I spent a lot of time watching Ghostbusters growing up and got everything that it was hinting at throughout the whole entire film. I'm like, I get that reference.
yeah,
And, just being able to enjoy that fun time. But Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And I hope all of you out there go check out Death to Metal coming out on VOD December 7th. So show it some love. It's a good time and have some laughs, enjoy buckets of blood and guts and some metal music. But Tim, thank you so much again for coming on.
yeah. Thanks, Shane. I appreciate it. The time.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.